Before we dive into this remarkable story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in this situation? Drop your opinions in the comments below. In the heart of Manhattan, where buildings scraped the sky and cast cold shadows on the streets below, stood the Golden Ember. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was an institution, a place where New York's wealthiest and most powerful came to revel in their status, where the air was scented with truffle oil, aged wine, and the faintest trace of superiority. The walls gleamed with golden light, and each marble table seemed to say, "Only the deserving belong here." The Golden Ember was luxury incarnate, known as much for its exquisite cuisine as for the exclusivity of its clientele. It was a world where service was flawless but impersonal, where wealth spoke louder than words, and where the staff were expected to be unseen, as silent as shadows. But beneath the polished surface of this opulent place, the staff knew a very different world. One of rigid expectations, impossible standards, and an owner whose iron rule was built on appearances and control. Among those employees was Jada Williams, 26 years old, African-American, and possessed of a will that had been tempered in the fires of hardship. Her deep brown eyes reflected both resilience and exhaustion. She worked tirelessly, slipping through the labyrinth of fine dining with the grace of someone who knew how much depended on her paycheck. For Jada, every long shift wasn't just about herself. It was about her mother back in Queens, bedridden with a chronic illness. It was about the medical bills stacking up like bricks, threatening to crush them both. Every plate she carried, every glass she polished, was another inch of survival. And above it all loomed Vincent Cross. Vincent was the owner and tyrant of the Golden Ember. In his late 50s, tall and broad, with silver-streaked hair slicked back to perfection, Vincent dressed like a Wall Street CEO and acted like a dictator. His suits cost more than Jada made in a month, and his gaze stripped people of their dignity if he thought they didn't belong. To Vincent, appearances were everything. You were either somebody or you were nothing. He ran his empire accordingly. He expected his employees to embody silent efficiency, never challenging his authority or his rigid ideas about who was worthy of respect. He ruled by fear, and few dared to step out of line. It was just another evening at the Golden Ember. The crystal chandeliers glittered, violins played softly over the murmur of polite conversation, and Jada moved through it all with practiced ease. She could have told you which customers tipped poorly and which ones gossiped about their rivals behind $200 glasses of wine. But tonight would be different. Tonight, everything would change. The moment came at exactly 7:48 p.m. The heavy doors swung open, and a man walked in. Alone. His clothes were worn and frayed. His boots scuffed and uneven. His hair, once neatly trimmed, now tangled and streaked with gray. He carried himself with a strange, quiet dignity, like someone who had once stood among kings but had since been forgotten. His name, though no one knew it yet, was Diego Morales. The room seemed to hold its breath. Conversations faltered. Several patrons turned their heads in disgust. Whispers rippled like a current. Who was this man? What was he doing here? Vincent Cross saw him immediately from his usual perch by the bar. His icy gaze narrowed. To Vincent, Diego was an eyesore, an offense, a blemish on the pristine image of his restaurant. Without needing to say a word, he expected his staff to act. But no one moved. No one, except Jada. She didn't hesitate. She approached the man with the same calm professionalism she gave every guest, though her heart beat faster. She could feel Vincent's stare burning into her back. But she also saw the weariness in Diego's eyes, and the hint of something else beneath it, something important. "Good evening, sir," Jada said smoothly. "Welcome to the Golden Ember. Would you like a table for one?" The staff froze. The whispers sharpened into audible disbelief. Someone even gasped softly. No one ever welcomed someone like Diego here. Vincent's lips curled in silent fury. This, he thought, is why Jada Williams was a liability. Too soft, too willing to offer dignity where, in his mind, none was deserved. Diego's eyebrows lifted slightly in surprise. Then he nodded. "Yes, that would be nice." Jada led him to a table near the back. Not in exile, but somewhere quiet, where he could eat in peace without drawing more scorn. She handed him a menu, her hands steady even as Vincent stormed toward them. Jada, Vincent hissed through clenched teeth. A word. She turned slowly to face him. Yes, Mr. Cross. He stepped closer, his voice low but venomous. We don't serve as kind here. Jada's stomach twisted, but she kept her expression neutral. He's a customer, isn't he? Vincent scoffed. You think he can pay? Look at him. She met his gaze. If he orders and pays, he's a guest like anyone else. Vincent stared at her, nostrils flaring. But there were too many eyes watching, too many rich patrons who might raise their eyebrows if he made a scene. So, after a long pause, he said fine. But if he causes trouble, he's your problem. Jada turned back to Diego and smiled. Can I get you something to drink? Water would be fine, Diego replied, his tone steady, though there was a flicker of appreciation in his eyes. Jada could feel the judgment of her co-workers, the silent condemnation of the room, but she pushed it away. She was here to do her job, and she believed every person deserved respect, whether they wore Prada or patches. Diego studied the menu with the focus of someone who hadn't eaten well in a long time. When Jada returned with his water, he gave a soft smile. I'll have the soup of the day, he said, and maybe some bread. A fine choice, Jada replied. From across the room, Vincent Cross watched, seething. Let's see how long this charity act lasts, his glare seemed to say. But Jada wasn't playing games. She ensured Diego's order was treated with care, ignoring the whispers and glares. She had served plenty of people with full wallets and empty souls. Diego seemed different. When she placed the soup and bread before him, he looked up and said simply, Thank you, Mississippi. She gave him a nod and stepped back. But she noticed how he ate slowly, savoring every bite as if memorizing the flavors. He treated the meal with reverence, unlike many of the regulars who consumed their luxuries thoughtlessly. Then the trouble started. A woman seated nearby, draped in diamonds, said loudly enough for everyone to hear, This is disgusting. I spend thousands here. Why are they letting people like that in? Her companion chuckled. What's next? A soup kitchen. Laughter rippled among the guests. Jada's grip on her tray tightened. Vincent saw his moment. He approached Diego's table with oily politeness. Sir, I trust you're enjoying your meal? Very much, Diego said. The soup is excellent. Vincent's smile was thin. Wonderful. Then you won't mind settling the bill. Diego nodded and reached into his pocket. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled out small bills and loose coins. He counted them carefully, placing them on the table. Then he paused. I seem to be a little short, he admitted. I thought I had enough. The room went silent. Vincent's sneer returned. I knew it. I can work for it, Diego offered. Wash dishes, clean floors. Vincent laughed cruelly. You think I'm going to let you touch anything back there? Security, two men in dark suits approached. Jada moved quickly, stepping in front of Diego. Wait, Vincent scowled. Step aside, Jada. She reached into her apron, pulling out her tip money. Crumpled bills, coins, the hard-earned cash of her night's work. She placed it on the table. His bill is paid. The silence was deafening. Vincent's eyes darkened. You're serious? Yes, Jada said. Diego watched her, his expression unreadable, then quietly nodded. Much appreciated. Vincent's pride was wounded, but with the bill settled, he had no reason to throw Diego out. With a curt wave, he dismissed the guards. Diego finished his meal, stood, and turned to Jada. You didn't have to do that. I know, she replied. You have a good heart, he said quietly. That's rare here. And then he left. Jada stood there, wondering why she'd done it. Maybe defiance, maybe compassion, but she couldn't have known that this was only the beginning. The next day, Vincent called Jada into the back room. You embarrassed me, he snarled. You made this place look cheap. I paid his bill. I don't care, Vincent snapped. From now on, you're cleaning bathrooms and scrubbing floors. Jada accepted it without argument. She spent the day on her knees, cleaning, while the others served champagne and caviar. But she didn't regret her choice. Later that evening, She found Diego and a young woman waiting behind the building. His sister, Rosa Morales. They hadn't eaten since yesterday. Jada snuck them leftover food from the kitchen. Bread, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes. It wasn't much, but it was something. But Vincent found them. Furious, he fired her on the spot. And then Diego did something strange. He pulled out a thick stack of cash and handed it to Vincent. For the food, Diego said, and for the lesson you're about to learn. The next night, the Golden Ember was packed. Then Diego returned. But not as a homeless man. He wore a custom-tailored suit, his hair neatly styled. Rosa stood beside him in an elegant dress. The room buzzed. Whispers flew. That's Diego Morales, they realized. The billionaire investor. The man behind half the luxury hotels and fine dining establishments in the country. Vincent's world tilted. Diego approached Jada with a smile. It's good to see you, he said warmly. She blinked. What is going on? Rosa smiled. I'm Rosa. This is my brother, Diego. Vincent snapped. What kind of game is this? Diego turned to him. No game. I'm buying this restaurant. Vincent laughed until Rosa handed him a file. The deal was done. Vincent's investors had sold their shares. Diego owned the Golden Ember now. You're fired, Rosa said smoothly. Vincent's rage was palpable, but there was nothing he could do. Diego turned to Jada. How do you feel about running this place? Jada stared at him. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. I think I'd like that. And that's how one act of kindness changed everything. If you believe in the power of compassion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join us every day for stories that remind us of what really matters.